Boxberger deals. Fly ball, left field, deep, going back guy. Still back, turning, looking. See ya! A big 3-run home run for Slade Heathcott. A huge ninth inning for the Yankees as they take a 4-1 lead.
On today's show, we are talking with Slade Heathcott, a former Major League Baseball player. We talk about his youth days in Oklahoma, how playing multiple sports helped him become a professional athlete, the importance of confidence, routines, and approach, as well as talk about his podcast, On the Path.
Welcome to another episode of the Baseball Awakening Podcast, where we dive into the raw, unfiltered, unsexy side of player development. Get ready for some knowledge bombs with your host, Geoff Rottmayer.
Welcome to the Baseball Awakening Podcast. I'm Geoff Rottmayer, and I am sitting here with Slade Heathcott, a former big league baseball player. Slade, how are you, sir?
Hey, how are you doing? Good morning.
Slade, man, I appreciate you coming on. You know, you got to play in the big league, you know, something that a very small percentage of guys who'd ever played the game had an opportunity to step on the big league field. So, my friend, you were pretty good. So let's just kind of start this conversation off talking about your youth days. What was that like?
I think it's a lot like most people that chose a profession of baseball or even got into college. You know, you're playing at a young age. So I started T-ball when I was 4. And I played every year after that until, this year, honestly. So, but I also didn't just play baseball. I was also football, soccer, basketball, wrestling. And then once I got into the older, right before high school and things like that, it was basically football, baseball, wrestling. So, it was filled with a lot of traveling. Being from Pryor, Oklahoma, it was about a 45-minute drive to Tulsa. So 3 to 4 days a week, we were driving an hour each way to do practice and games and things like that. So my life pretty much solely revolved around sports, pretty much my whole life.
Nice. So whenever you were playing all those different sports, do you feel that playing all those sports helped you in becoming a professional athlete?
No question. I think one of the biggest things that my opinion, obviously, but the biggest mistakes that I see parents make nowadays, and I think it's leading to a lot of injuries, is these kids being and only playing one sport. And they, from the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever it might be, they end up just going to one sport that they're better at. And I think that that's detrimental for growth and everything. And I think it also teaches kids that, whether you play 2, 3, 4 sports, you may not be as good in a lot of them. And I think that to be good or to be able to hold your own, you have to develop those tendencies and overcome adversity and kind of get creative on how you're going to find success. And even if you don't, I think it teaches you the lesson of pushing through, like not giving up. I think a lot of kids nowadays, first time they face adversity, and I know as well as anybody, it's not easy always, but I think when we subject our kids to only doing one thing, they never have, or they miss out on the opportunity to push past adversity. And not only that, whether you're playing baseball, whether you're hiking, I just did a run yesterday for a nonprofit, which I've never done. And I did 24 miles in 24 hours, and it's using a totally different muscle group than I've ever used before. So I think the more, Napoleon Hill talks about it, think and grow rich, and it's diversity. And I think that we forget that. We think that that's just for investment, or we just think that's for business or money, but it's not. It's diversification in life. I think it leads to happiness. I think it leads to growth. And I think when kids are only playing one sport, they miss out on a lot of those opportunities that you can start forming character and the things you'll need to achieve success, because especially in baseball, you're just going to face a lot of failure, and you've got to be able to mentally stay prepared, mentally stay up, because it's very easy to get down. So I think we deprive kids of those opportunities of growth and betterment by not allowing them to face their adversity or making them face their adversity.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So did you keep practicing these other sports, or were you all in on one sport during that time?
You know, I talked about it right when I got drafted. I thought that I would go straight to training baseball all year round, and it would become me being a better athlete. And you know what? If I could go back, I don't think I would have ever stopped. I mean, obviously there's ways to be smart and things like that. You're not going out and padded up and jersey and shoulder pads and playing football. But I think that honestly, and I think this goes to each individual person, depending on who you are mentally and everything. But for me, I think it actually almost hurt me. I think that when I was only practicing, to answer your question, I did not solely focus on baseball. So when I was playing baseball in high school, yeah, there would be times that I would hit and whatever, but I'd pick it up in late December and be playing early January when I'm playing football the rest of those months. So I think it actually hurt me. And I think that, we have so many of our movements are natural to us, especially in baseball and things like that. It's kind of natural. And yes, you're working to perfect the trade and work on perfecting things, but I also think it can be that overload where you're doing too much and it's almost detrimental. Maybe the saying quantity versus quality.
Right. So for the listeners that say, I really love the game of baseball. Baseball is all I want to do. And let's say that they are 14 and this is all they want to do. So we say, okay, listen, I get it. You want to play baseball. That's fine. But like you said, there are other things you can do to kind of stay well-rounded.
Well, I think who we are off the field directly correlates to who we are on the field. I truly believe that. And when you start saying that you love the game, and that's awesome, like you want to have that love, you have to. There's no way to play through minor league baseball without having a love for the sport. When you're making $6,500 to $10,000 for the entire year, and you're playing to play the game, you're playing because you love the game. And I think that's right. A lot of what kids. I didn't understand that when I was drafted. I had no idea what minor league baseball was about. I had no idea that I was going to make $5,600 my very first year playing, right. And things of that nature. So I think you have to love it. But for the kid that says they love it, watch TV, watch games, take notes. Like one of the greatest things that we have and the abilities we have is to be able to. We have so much data at our hands, and that can be detrimental as well because it can make you almost like a robot. But if you love the game, keep doing it. Keep staying in it, but you don't have to physically be in it. The success between goods and greats, the difference between those are the details. And it's not necessarily details with the body, but more so with the mind. I think that's where you find the success. And I think any CEO, any professional athlete, whatever the field is that have found success, they will agree as well. There's the mental side of life is where you achieve greatness. The physical side follows behind what your mind says, and your mind tells your body what to do, and you tell your mind what to do. So one of the best things I ever learned how to do was to quit listening to myself and start talking to myself, because it's very easy for us to listen when we're burning in that last rep or we're trying to push through another 90-yard dash, whatever it might be. You can get better mentally without physically wearing your body out in one sport. Switch it up. Get out and run, train. I'm not saying you have to take days off because I don't take too many. And now that I'm getting out of the game, I take more. But when I was in, I didn't take any days. And, I don't think any one thing is the answer. And it goes back to diversification. A good diet is one part. Good routine is another part. Sleeping is another. Your workout habits, everything ties into greatness. So there is no one thing that's going to do it. It takes a lot of. You have to find out where you can be best and how you can better yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and along with it, bringing somebody else up. So just to get back to your question, I would tell kids if you love the game, watch it, be in it, but don't train your body to only do baseball. it's going to do nothing but lead to more injuries. It's going to do nothing but lead to you getting burnout. I don't care how much you love it. It's going to lead to that. And when you do something for 162 days, it's different for kids in high school and college where they're playing 40 or they're playing 70 games.
Right.
It's a totally different ballgame when you start playing 162 games. And that's not including spring training. And you're always on the road. And you're around the same 25 guys every day. You have to have those mental escapes. So you have to be able to get yourself out and have hobbies. So I would always try to find hobbies that would make me better in the game. So one that I picked up in 2014 and 15 that I think was huge was backpacking. Because everything we do when we train, we're on stable ground. And when you're backpacking, you're not getting the high impact. You're not running and getting the impact that you get day to day. So that's being smart and taking stress off your joints, but you're getting stability. You're putting your foot on a rock that's not stable, and you're having to stabilize and things like that. So find hobbies that make you better on the field, that make you more athletic. You're never going to hurt yourself by being more athletic.
Nice. I love it. You hit a lot of points I'd like to dig deeper into. I heard you say that you got really good at talking to yourself and not listening, which is great advice. Where did that come from? Did a coach tell you that, or how did you come about that and live by that?
I think it's ultimately, and some people think I'm just blunt and harsh, but that's what you have to be. Ultimately, it's a choice. Look, what goes in is going to come out. I don't care whether you're purple, black, white, purple, female, male, whatever it might be. If you listen to rap music all your life, you're going to think one way or have a perception of life in one way. If you listen to country music, it's going to be different. There's not a right or wrong.
Right.
But what goes in is going to come out. So if you're being negative, quit listening to negative shit. If you're trying to be positive and you're trying, which to me, I found out in 2014 when I was told I would never play again, November 25th, I think, of 2014, I had been listening to a Zig Ziglar audio tape. It was like 17 hours long. And the first time I heard it, he was talking about, like your day is in your hands. Whether you want to have a good day, it's your choice. And I'm like, this is the biggest crock I've ever heard. Like at that point in my life and where I was at, I didn't think about the mental side. It was always physical to me. It was always push past the pain or do this instead of slowing down and figuring out what do I need to think mentally to make the difference. And so I was listening to these podcasts or these audio tapes over and over again while I was working out. And I think I had almost 200 sessions of rehab at API, which is Andrew's Performance, in Pensacola. And when he told me that, he was like, we've done everything, Cam. We've had 2 surgeries, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at him and I said, Doc, there's nobody in the world that can tell me what I can and can't do. And I think it was me being stubborn, but I remember walking outside that day, right after that, and I looked up, and it was when the Blue Angels were flying, actually, because they practice I think it was a Wednesday. So Blue Angels were flying, and I just remember telling myself, it finally clicked and registered in my head. Like, whether it was from the people that I heard several times of talk about how you have to be positive, and the players that talk about you have to be positive, but it finally clicked in my head. I was like, you're right. Like, my day is my choice. And since then, I've not had another bad day. And I have days that are better than others. And bad things happen. That's life. Like, we are going to face. Like, that's why I love, what the podcast is On the Path. I have 2 number 1 bucket list items. It's to open an orphanage and to climb Mount Everest. And I love the reference of climbing to your summit because we're going to face trials. It's an uphill climb. And I'm not taking away from that uphill grind. It's like people that talk about the grind. I hate that word.
Yeah.
Just because I was around baseball every day, and I think by saying the grind, I get it. Like, you're pushing past, like you're going to have to get that. But why grind? Why not thrive? Why not prosper, excel? Things like that. Why not use different words like that to trigger in your brain that there are negative connotations with words? So when it came to just picking that up in my life, it was a combination of a lot of things. But then ultimately, it's a choice. So instead of listening to music when you get in the car, turn something positive on. I think Harvard Business Journal said that, or did a study that showed that 15 minutes of positive reinforcement or video before you go out and perform is going to raise your performance level every time. So you have to be willing to pay attention to those little details and do the little things that make you and that allows you to have that tick better mind frame or tick better perspective that allows you to perform just a little bit better or push past adversity a little bit more. So I think it's a choice ultimately.
I love it. Was that something you developed younger, or is this something over time as you're going through the minor league process and getting hurt? So can you talk about that a little bit?
I think at that point I'd had 6 and when I was in high school, I didn't have anything more than the game. And what I mean by that is mentally, my life revolved around baseball or sports. Like, it always did. And I didn't have a sense of identity outside of the game. And I think it can work as a motivator for some people, and I think that it can be a crippling crutch. And it kind of goes back to kids that love the game that are staying in it year round, right? Maybe it's the motivator they need, but at the same time, maybe that's what burns them out. Maybe they don't have a sense of identity outside the game. And if in the game of baseball, you have to have confidence. And if you only have confidence in who you are on the field, it's definitely when times get tough and you're losing that sense, and or people that know that play and that have seen it, like, no matter who you are, you know that there's ups and downs. It's very hard to be consistent every single day in the game of baseball. Some guys do, and that's awesome, but that's not the reality for 99% of people. So if you don't have a sense of identity outside of the game and you start struggling, and then what happens when baseball isn't there? Like, to me, like, I'm working on a minor league nonprofit for minor leaguers to help raise money for them and just to be a better rounded person. And it's called More Than Baseball, because life is more than baseball. This is a game, and every day that we get to wake up, it's an incredible opportunity to go out and do the thing we love. Never get away from that. But we have to be more rounded. More than 99% of high school kids will never make it to the big leagues, even though they sign contracts to play in the minor leagues. They're never going to make it to the big leagues. That's the truth. So if people always say, like, well, I'm not going to have a plan B because I'm selling out for plan A. There's no reason why you can't have a plan B and still be sold out for plan A. I think that's ignorant. I think it's lazy. I think it's people that have an ego that are just plain being lazy and think that they're going to be the best. And people have to think that. You have to have confidence in yourself, but you don't have to be dumb, because there's more than the game of baseball. There's more than baseball. There's life. There's how you influence people. There's kids everywhere, whether you're a stud high school kid or a single A, double A, big league. People are looking up to you. Not only that, people are going to be reliant on you at some point, whether it's family, whether it's your family, your kids, your friends, whatever you got to do. It's more than baseball. It's about being the best you on a daily basis to influence the world and have the strongest impact.
I love it. So let me ask this. The whole finding your identity part, obviously you went through some injuries to get you to that point. What's your advice to the young guy that's listening that identifies as a baseball player? How does one start this process of identifying, who am I? I'm this guy that gets to play baseball.
Waking up, looking in the mirror, and figuring out how you can accept what you see. And it sounds so cheesy and so small, and, you look in the mirror, whatever. But when you really slow down and start looking at who you are, you have to be able to accept it. And, the thing that it goes back to, like, being around it and being, like, if you want to be in the game 24/7, awesome. And you don't have an identity outside of the game, well, then you're putting pressure on yourself. Like, if you don't have a plan B, and you're selling out for plan A, awesome. If that's your motivator, you want plan A. But there's going to come a time when plan A is not there, and then who are you? So it's just by being able to have an identity outside of the game, and me being Slade Heathcott, I'm not a baseball player. I'm Slade Heathcott and I play baseball. There's a difference. If I'm Slade Heathcott and I'm a baseball player, that's my only identity. So when baseball's there, that's when I think you see so many athletes that get out of the game or have an injury, whatever, and struggle with so many things when they get out of the game, whether it's getting into drugs or whatever. They don't have a sense of identity. It's kind of like our nation today. Like, we don't have a sense of identity. We're so worried about everyone else and every single group having power. Let's get rid of all the groups. Let's get rid of all the BS, all the slurs, all the shit that everybody's talking about, everyone being equal. Let's be equal. Let's quit talking about it. It goes the same thing in the game. Like, you have to have an identity outside of the game, so that way you can take the pressure off yourself and allow yourself to step out in between the lines that you played when you were 5 years old or 8 years old, and you were in the backyard and you were thinking, oh, it's the bottom of the ninth, tied out. Like, you're back to playing a game. Instead of it being something you have to do, it's something you get to do. So when you have an identity outside of the game, you take pressure off yourself and allow yourself to perform at a better level. And there's nobody that likes playing more under pressure than myself, but it's different when having pressure because you want to do good and pressure because you think you have to do good.
Nice. I love it. So let me ask this. You referred to confidence, and with you being an athlete that signed with LSU, getting drafted, signing for a nice little sum, and then being able to play in the big leagues, you obviously have a level of confidence that was needed. Where did that come from? Was that something you developed, or you just seemed to have had?
I think until 2014, until I hit that moment, I had a lot of outward confidence, which looks like confidence, and it leads to confidence, but I think it's very shaky confidence. Like, when I say confidence, I'm not saying cocky. Like, Jeter had more confidence than anybody I knew, but you never heard anything. You have to have confidence no matter what you do in life. Whether you're in front of 500 people or 5 people and you're reading a poem you wrote, or you're knocking on doors and you're trying to and sell windows, whatever it might be, you have to have confidence in what you're doing and what you have, your product and yourself. Your deliverance is going to change when you have confidence. The only thing that changes directly for baseball players, since that's what I know, is slumps occur when your confidence wavers. That's it. Most of the time, it's not mechanical. 99% of the time, it's mental, which means you just lose confidence in yourself, and you have to have confidence. And there's a healthy confidence, and ego goes into that. And ego is huge. There's nothing wrong with an ego as long as you know you have an ego, and you have it in check. Like, I have a bigger ego than anyone I know, and I have to keep it in check on a daily basis. And to this day, I still catch myself having too big of an ego and realizing that I'm making things about me and not about the bigger picture. And you have to have confidence in yourself. You're not going to amount to anything or amount to near what your potential can be if you don't have confidence. Everything goes back to confidence.
Right. So let's go back to your younger playing days. Did you have a big influencer? Like was there a coach that really took you in? Because I did a little reading on you, and you may have had a little bit of a tougher upbringing. So was there a coach that really helped you become the best version of yourself?
Man, I don't think my path was near as hard as a lot of people, but my parents fought a lot. They, were always getting to the point where I pretty much would start fights with them just so that they would fight with me and not against each other and things of this nature. But to say one person, it'd be impossible. I've had so many people, in my high school days when I'm living out of my truck at the baseball field. I have families that didn't really know that I was doing that, but they knew that I was on my own, that my mother had moved away for a marriage and some other things that just she wasn't able to stay. But yeah, I had so many people stand up to influence, whether it was Donnie Gibson, my very first T-ball coach that, taught me the game of baseball. My grandfather's probably the largest, just throughout the course of my entire life, because he was my dad growing up. I didn't have a super close relationship with my father, and he wasn't my biological father, but my grandfather was the guy that I would have out in the cul-de-sac, and we're playing football and we're playing catch and doing all these things that I would do. In high school, I had a guy named Brett Swanger, and when I was living on there, he always made himself available. I don't know how many times, whether in the middle of the week, whatever it might be, we'd be at the cages at this little indoor facility with music on and just hitting. And, we just hit for 2 hours. That was my escape when all of this stuff was going on. I think I just pushed it under the rubble and hit it, and I covered it with baseball. And so Brett Swanger was a huge one that is a very big fatherly figure to me, and somebody that is very close to my heart and that I care about a lot. The Norton family for buying me clothes in high school and making sure that I had things. The Waldrop family that gave me money to drive to Dr. Andrews to get my ACL surgery that I needed my senior year, and made sure that I had somewhere to be on all holidays, and always inviting me to dinner. I mean, the list goes on, and there's so many that I did, that I just am not able to think of, or it would take too long to say it. But I don't believe we ever, like, one of the biggest flaws, I think, and that I see in the game, especially today and in the world, is everybody thinks that, I have a saying, I talk about the summits a lot. So I always say that if you get to your summit and you're alone, you're not at your summit, you're a mirage in the middle of the desert. Nobody gets to the top without people around them. And, it's one of my biggest flaws is asking for help. That's such a hard thing because of my ego. Like, having to ask for help is hard. And I think asking for help is one of the biggest influencers to success. Like, we don't know everything. We're not going to know everything, but we have to have the people around us that are going to allow us to do that and to have success. And who we are, just like our moms always told us, like, who you are is who you'll become. That's so true. Like, to some facet, to some degree, no matter how long you spend around somebody, if you spend your time around them, they influence your day. They influence your day. They influence your path. And so the people you surround yourself by are maybe one of the biggest factors of success. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, I agree. So whenever you were in the cages during this time, were you just swinging away and getting reps, or did you have a sense of purpose? At what point did you say, you know what, I got to make every single rep count?
I think it was probably a mixture of both. Sometimes it was a stress reliever. Sometimes it was clearing my head, getting away from the shit that was going on. Whatever it might be going, or whatever I might have been going through at that time, which was all kinds of different things. And I think it was a release. And I think I always had a purpose. And I think I made it very simple back then. Go back to the whole data and having an overload. There was one thing that was different. I always was a feel guy. Like, just go out, get the feel, and get the result. I kept it very simple. And, it was one thing when I started playing is I started overcomplicating a lot of things, which then for me made me like a robot. And I don't play well like that. Like, I had to react. And I think that in high school, I kept it really simple. Like, it got me there. Like, so many times. And right after I signed, you get this coach for whatever, you'll just say Yankees, and that's where I went. And you have this hitting coach in rookie ball, and he's telling you all this. Like, everybody's trying to put their name on you and their title on you, and you need to change this and you need to change that. And yes, there's always adjustments, but like, all my surgeries and everything, if I could do one thing that I could change in the 9 years that I played, was when I got there, not being so open to change. And, that's a tricky line, because in life, I think it's really great to have an open mind to the possibilities and what's going on. But when it came to just baseball, one of the things I wish I would have not done was to listen as much. Like, don't change. I got there for a reason. So every kid that's out there and they're having success, yes, you might need to make adjustments, but don't change who you are. You are great because of who you are, you can always improve, and you do have to have that open mentality for improvement, but you also have to have a very stubborn aspect and a very clear understanding of what you're trying to adjust and why. Because you don't want to get away from who you are. I moved one way for 15 years or for 13 years and played that way. Why get away from it? So it's just a fine line of, you know, when I was hitting in those cages in high school, it was having fun still. Like, you got to have fun and keep it simple.
Yeah, you know, every single person that I've talked to that had the opportunity to play in the big leagues have said that. So if I'm listening to this and I'm getting ready to head down this path, how does one have this conversation? You know, say, hey, listen, you know, I'm open to listening, but this is what got me here.
You use the technology to your advantage. We have video on every hitter. Use it. Every hitter is different. Like, it's so crazy because everybody tries to have a cookie cutter method to hitting. There's no swing the same. The biggest change is in your head, like what you're trying to do. Your approach is everything. And knowing that sometimes in your approach and in your routine or your game plan, you got to understand that you're not going to be the best. And if you are going to make the change and the video shows it and everything lines up and you believe in it, you have to be willing to stick with it. You have to be able to stick with it when you're going 0 for 16 or 1 for 40, whatever it might be. You have to have the grit to say, I'm going to stick with this. This is my plan. I believe in it, through up and down, because it's so easy to go to the field every day and change what you're going to do and change your routine or change this because it feels like this. We're going to feel different. And, you know, that's why I said it's tricky, because I say, like, I used to be just a feel guy. And I think feel is what you need to remember. Like, get back to that feel. You hear Jeter or A-Rod talk about, find that feel. Carlos Beltran was big on it. Like, every day, I don't care what I'm working on, I want to feel. But in order to do that, you have to be consistent. And to be consistent, you can't change your approach. You have to stick with it. And I think that over time gives you long-term success and not just a small inkling of success. You know, I think that was one of the biggest things that I lacked and that I needed to work on, was the ability to stick with an approach and a plan. Let's not change from day to day. Let's go and let's get it. No matter how much I'm going to fail, I'm going to stick with it until I find a way to succeed. And I think it was the biggest thing is every day I was trying to do something different. I think that hurt me in the long run, was not having that integrity to just stick with it. The insight to know that this is a journey and a process, and, you know, just be the best who you're going to be. The biggest thing was I was a perfectionist. Baseball players, I'm telling you right now, you're never going to be a perfectionist. So just know that.
Yeah, that's something we see a lot, you know, with the internet, and there's so much access to information. If this isn't working, we're so quick to jump over here and try this, and we never really see the benefit because we're not consistent in implementing something long enough to see if it's even working.
Right. I agree.
So at what point did you figure out who you were as a hitter, and how did you develop your approach?
I don't know if I ever figured out who I was as a hitter. I think 2017 between AA and AAA was by far my best hitting season. Even in 2015 when I was up, I was making a lot of changes, and I think I found that, but I still lacked that ability to really lock in and stay there. I still wanted to change. I was still trying to be a perfectionist and all this, but it was really a routine. Like, I had great people around me, and I had the mindset that I was going to be great. Like, there was no question in my mind when I was told in 2014 when I plugged in, there was no doubt in my mind that I was making it to big leagues against all the hard times, the trials, everything that everyone said that I was done. I knew that it wasn't. You have to have faith in yourself. Like, being a good hitter, being a good person, being a good businessman, it all goes back to that confidence, having faith in yourself, in your journey, in your process, in your work. Control the things you can control. So the hitter, when I was good and when I was figuring it out, was that I knew that no matter where I was at, no matter what I was doing, probably the best thing in 2015 that I did and learned was all my work every day in the cage, 3, 4, 5 hours before the game, on the field, everything. I'm getting my work in, okay, and I'm working on specific things. But then when I get into the game, I've got to completely clear my head. Like when I in that box, I'm just going to compete. I'm not going to think about what my leg is doing. I'm not going to think about where my arm is or where my knuckles are. I'm not going to think about any of that. I'm not going to think about swinging down. I'm not going to think about swinging up. I'm just going to get in the box and trust in myself and have faith in myself that the work that I did is going to result in the long run to give me the best results I possibly could have. So it goes back to like when I was the best, I had faith in who I was and in the process. And I was able to completely clear my mind once I stepped in the box and just compete.
Nice. And how long, at what point did you feel like you had a routine that you stuck to? Because it takes time for one to figure that out. But at what point, or did you ever?
I don't know if I ever had a locked-in everyday routine. I had a variety of hitting drills that I would work on. So I did have a routine. I can't say that I went in and hit 5T here, 5T there, 5T there. Now, Robinson Cano, Mookie Betts, those guys who are some of the great hitters that I've ever seen, pretty much the same routine every single day. And maybe that's where I lacked, and maybe I should have done the exact same thing every single day. But at the time, that's not what I believe. Like my deal was, let's do our work, let's work on things, and boom, let's go out and compete. So, I mean, there was definitely 5 or 10 drills that I would work on, and some days it was the exact same thing, and sometimes it wasn't. I think the biggest thing is, minor leagues is about getting to the big leagues. As bad as it sucks, very few guys are playing to go out and win. Just not, like, teams aren't even going out to play to win. You're not putting the lineup out there every day that will give you the best chance to win. That's just the truth. And I think that's where I was so comfortable in the big leagues it was away from all the BS. For 6 years, I was told, oh, this is what the major leagues is like. This is what it is, and this is what you're going to have to do, and this is who you're going to have to be. That's such a crock of crap. Like, all the minor league guys and front office people that tell you this and tell you, oh, well, you're going to have to do this and do that. No. When you get to the big leagues, all they want you to do is at 7:05, 7:08, you take the field and you're the best player you can be. They do not give a rat's ass what you do. So it got away from trying to be better every day. And then it was, then when I got up, it was, I'm going to step on this field. It was the same game that I played when I was 8 years old. I'm fun because it's about winning. So it got back to the mentality of winning instead of everybody being about themselves. So that's one of the main reasons why I wanted, not main reasons, but definitely an influencing factor was that being in the minor leagues, it's such a selfish sport. And I hate that. Like, I'm about being on a team that's ready to go out and win. And I think that's why I had so much success and would have so much more success in the league if given the real opportunities, because I'm comfortable with going out and winning as a team instead of going out and being just the best Slade.
Yeah. So how do you think you develop the ability to compete? Because we look at the times today and we're not playing wiffle ball in the backyard. We're not trying to beat our buddies and our friends and stuff. And we're just not seeing a lot of that. So how did you develop this competitiveness?
Well, it goes back to the same thing we were talking about earlier. We have kids that play one sport, or they pick one thing that they're actually good at, that they consider they may not be the best, but they're good at. Well, they never fit. If you want to compete, if you want to have that fire, if you want to have kids that have that, find a kid that's failed 1,000 times and it's still going.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, like, that's the whole thing behind everyone gets a trophy. I'm sorry, but and I hope cussing, that's so much bullshit.
Yeah.
It's so terrible
Yeah.
that everybody, and you know, it bugs me because then you have people that are like, oh, that's so mean. Like, why doesn't every kid? Everybody deserves, like, but you want to know why? It's my argument to them. Why are you telling your kid that he has to be a baseball player? Why are you telling your kid he has to be a soccer player? Why? So he has to win a trophy because he has to be good at this? No, he doesn't. There's nothing wrong with not being a baseball player. I saw one time when I was in Charlotte, mathletes. Like, that bugs me. Like, why do we put so much emphasis on athletes? There's nothing wrong with not being an athlete. It takes all of us, whether it's the janitor, whether it's front office, whether it's the person to open the door. We all have our important roles, but it doesn't mean you have to be an athlete. It doesn't mean you have to succeed all the time, because that's not life. Anybody who's lived life knows we're not going to succeed all the time. We're going to fail more than not. Like, how many times did Jordan shoot and miss game-winning shot? There's some statistic on it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Not even close. And Thomas Edison, he, 5,000 filaments. He tried 5,000 different filaments before he found a filament that would burn long enough and hold to be a light bulb. Like, we're so, as a society, in the fact that we have to have everything right now, and greatness isn't earned overnight. We have so many overnight success. There is nobody in the world that has that overnight success. I don't care who you think you are. I don't care anything. Anybody that says they've had overnight success is not successful.
Right.
Because I don't care how many zeros you have in the bank, success is a lot more than zeros.
Right. So when you got to the big leagues, what was that like? Because the minor leagues are tough, and you've had some injuries along the way. So what was it like to finally get there?
The most exhilarating feeling you could ever have in life. I debuted in Washington, D.C. I will never consider in my head that being my debut. I came in a pinch run to share in the ninth. Awesome. Like, don't take away from the fact that I was able to finally get there. But the next day I started in center field, and that will always be my debut. So for me to playing the next day after I get called up in pinstripes in New York and hear roll call, and I'm the first name they start with, it's as a kid, and maybe I don't think I had dreamed of it being in pinstripes, because I didn't grow up a Yankees fan, and didn't understand what pinstripes meant until well after being signed, and the legacy behind it, the culture behind it, was amazing. But to be able to go through everything, whether I had not or gone through half of what I'd gone through in life or not, it was something that I had dreamed of my entire life. And I knew that moment when I heard roll call, probably the fourth time through, I knew that was what my life was meant. Like, that was the moment that I knew that I had an identity outside of the game, because when I took center field and I was sitting out there and I started hearing my name getting called with CCs on the mound, that was the moment that I knew that my life was going to be about serving others and making as many people better as possible, so that they have the best chance they possibly can be at achieving their dreams. Because everybody deserves the chance to obtain their dreams. And that's when I knew that my life was dedicated to that, and why I had identity. And that time up, that was when it just clicked. Like, I'm able to go out and just play for fun, because I know in the grand scheme of things, I don't need, there's a difference between needing. I don't need baseball. And that's when it became a back to just getting out and playing as a kid. Like, this game is fun, so why not have fun playing it?
Nice. And so obviously the team was full of talent and wisdom. And you got to be around them every single day and learn from them. Who was the guy that took you in? Who did you learn the most from, and what did you learn?
Man, that's I had somebody ask me this question the other day, and I was very, very fortunate that locker room was full of veterans that wanted to just give back to kids. In 15, I wasn't up, but starting in 13 and 14, I was locker next to Jesus in spring training. And just watching him go about his day and how consistent he was, it was one of those, like, being around those guys helped me more off the field than it did on the field. And that says a lot, because whether it was A-Rod, whether it was Gardy or Brian McCann, Carlos Beltran, Carlos and Alex might be the two smartest people I've ever seen in the game of baseball, including baseball intelligence and just life in general. They're both incredible people, but Beltran was really open to helping a lot of people, and he was very, very good at getting it across. Like the fact that I know that he was in contention for manager's job at the Yankees. Whoever lands him as a manager is got a gold mine. And I can see him being that. Alex is a little different, has a lot of great knowledge and love giving back. I'm trying to think. Man, there's so many good guys in that clubhouse. CC, Dylan Betanzas. Like, that was one thing about that locker room and different than any other. And I really enjoyed the Oakland locker room this year. Talk about a group of guys that were just awesome. Well, it was the Oakland locker room, but a little bit different of atmosphere. And, the Yankees are a lot different than other organizations. But hands up, hands down, there wasn't too many people on that 2015 team that didn't contribute and make themselves readily available to rookies and young players. So what the biggest things I learned was consistency. Everything revolves around it is consistency.
And with that, we're talking about performance, routines, and approach, right?
Everything, life. Like I said, who we are off the field. The biggest reason I had success in 2015, more so than I had anything, was that was the moment in my life where I realized I've been a negative influence my whole life. Like I have done nothing but be selfish, and I finally worked on the person that I looked at and saw in the mirror. And in 2015, that was the biggest change, was I finally accepted the person in the mirror. And when I accepted the person in the mirror, I wasn't walking around worried what every person thought. I wasn't worried about letting my life revolve around what he or she thought of me, instead of just being the best me possible. And I think that's what I learned from Jeter, and probably the biggest lesson I've learned in life was you're not going to make everyone happy, and you're not going to be liked by everyone. But if you're being the best you, and you know that, and only you know that, if you're being the best you and you lay down at night and you put your head on your pillow and you know that you've done everything you possibly can to be better mentally, physically, and emotionally, and you've tried to bring people along with you, you've done everything you can so you can sleep well at night. And I think that was the biggest one of the lesson I learned in life, was from Jeter, and to be consistent, because no matter whether he was over 40 or 40 for 40, you could never tell a difference.
Nice. So let's end with this. We're talking a little bit earlier about you are starting your own podcast. So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, it's On the Path of Slade. I'm working on a lot of things. That's me. I'm kind of going for that jack of all trades title. So I'm working on my pilot's license. I'm working on a media company, and have in with Deviate Existence, which is deviatex.com, which is my hat and clothing company that I'm in on now. But the podcast is kind of tying it all. It's kind of like a brand. Really, the podcast, everything kind of ties in together, and it's about a lifestyle. Like a couple things, like life is short. We never know when the last second's going to be, and we live. So much of us live our lives worried about next year and 5 years from now or 10 years from now, and that's fine. There's also a purpose for that, but we have to realize that we cannot change the past, and we can't control the future. But what we can do is we can control right now. And right now is all we have. This second, right now, being fully involved in that situation. And I think that is a trait that you hear a lot of successful people talk about. And, I told you when we first got on, I listen to successful people all the time. One of my favorite things to do is to listen to people that have had success, because whether they're in traveling or blogging or flying or baseball, they have traits that they figure out how to be successful. And it may be, that story might be another one, but each story is going to resonate with a different person. And who knows when they figure out what that key is. But my objective with the podcast is to have have successful people on that will share stories, advice, like lessons to show people that there's not a one cure-all, but there are a lot of things that you can work on to find success. And I want to do that. Not only that, I want, in society, we have too much division. And we have too many people saying, well, because you do this, I can't associate with you. Or because this is what you like, I can't be associated with you. And obviously, we're not talking about the extremes. But if I like pineapple on my pizza, that's the same to me as somebody thinking that it's okay or not okay to be gay. But just because we agree with something or disagree with something doesn't mean that we have to lose respect for people. And that's one thing I really want to relay on the podcast is just because we're all different and we're all going to be different.
Right.
My path is different than yours. And for us to act like we should all be the same is ignorant to me because we're all unique and we were all created for that uniqueness. And it's a beautiful thing, but we spend too much time telling people what is right and wrong instead of just supporting them. Like, for me, I'm a believer. So if you look at Jesus' path, who did he hang around? Tax collectors, prostitutes. I mean, look at Paul, who was Saul, who killed Christians. Like we so many believers and so many Christians are spending so much of their time judging people instead of just accepting people. Accept them, love them. If you want to have an influence in somebody's life, love them because you're not going to have an influence by telling them what's right and wrong. So I have a big picture of that. It's like we're all different. I want to bring people from everywhere and through different fields, just show that we can have respect for each other. We can make this world better, even though we all believe in something different. And on the athlete side of it, there's so many athletes that are able to do a lot of great things off the field. And I don't think that light is shit on that enough. Especially me getting out now. I see people all the time like put a box around what is possible for me, like what I'm able to do because I'm just a baseball player. Well, there's a lot of guys that have a lot of nonprofits and doing great things, like Matt Sergey with Deviate Existence and Deviate Existence Project, where he's trying to send athletes on mission trips. And you have these athletes that run businesses. Like, we're all more than what we are, whether you're selling real estate, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a pilot, we're all more than what we do. That's just what we do. Doesn't mean we have to be defined by it. We're defined by who we are and what our character is. And I just want to shed light on people's character and not so much what exactly they've done, but the bigger picture of how they've been able to achieve it. And I think we all have kind of that, like, true success comes from people being the best of them and to having something that is more important than themselves in life. And I want to shed light on that to realize the bigger picture. So yeah, I will be launching that in the next couple of days.
I love it. So I look forward to listening to that. Man, Slade, man, this has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I'm Geoff Rottmayer. Thank you for listening to our conversation on the Baseball Awakening podcast. Stay tuned for our recap show tomorrow.